I should have known today would be a disaster the moment my alarm didn't go off. Rushing out of my tiny apartment, I barely managed to throw on my best, my only decent blazer before sprinting to catch the subway. By the time I reached the towering glass skyscraper of Sinclair Enterprises, I was already breathless, my auburn hair a tangled mess from the morning wind. This was my big break. My one chance to prove I could survive in the corporate world. Too bad I was about to make the worst first impression of my life. Stepping into the pristine, intimidating office space, I gripped my coffee cup like a lifeline. Deep breaths, Lily. You got this. Then it happened. 1 second I was walking confidently toward the executive floor. The next my heel caught on the edge of the sleek marble floor, and before I could stop it, splash. The entire contents of my coffee cup flew through the air and landed right on the CEO's perfectly tailored suit. A deathly silence filled the office. The receptionist gasped. A few employees looked away as if they were witnessing my funeral in real time. I froze, horrified, my eyes traveling up to meet the glacial blue gaze of Nathaniel Nate Sinclair. The most feared man in the company. His sharp jaw clenched, his expression unreadable. He exuded power, authority, and right now murderous intent. For a moment nobody moved. My heart hammered so loudly I swore he could hear it. Then in a voice as cold as ice he spoke. Who the hell are you? Panic surged through me. I fumbled for words, bowing clumsily. I'm Lillian Carter, your new assistant. Sir, I am so sorry. His gaze flickered with something unreadable before he took a slow breath, brushing a hand over his now coffee-stained suit. Get out. My stomach dropped. What? His voice was eerily calm. Get out. I wanted to cry. I wanted to vanish. But instead I did what any professional assistant would do in this situation. I grabbed the nearest stack of tissues and started dabbing at his chest like my life depended on it. Bad idea. His eyes darkened. The temperature in the office seemed to drop. Miss Carter, he said dangerously, remove your hands from my person before I personally escort you out. I snatched my hands back like I'd been burned. Right. Yes. Sorry. Again. A slow exhale. A flicker of irritation in his piercing blue eyes. Meet me in my office in 5 minutes, he said flatly before turning on his heel and walking away, leaving behind nothing but the smell of expensive cologne, and the sinking realization that I was probably getting fired on my first day. I had exactly 5 minutes to prepare myself before walking into what felt like an execution chamber. The executive floor was eerily quiet, every step of my heels echoing against the polished floor as I approached the massive double doors of Nathaniel Sinclair's office. My heart pounded. My palms were sweaty, and my blazer still had a faint coffee stain from my earlier catastrophe. I took a deep breath and knocked. Come in. His voice was deep, smooth, and emotionless. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The office was massive, all sleek black furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. It screamed power. And sitting behind the giant mahogany desk was him, the man I had just baptized in scalding coffee. Nate Sinclair looked impossibly composed. His suit jacket was gone, his white dress shirt rolled up at the sleeves, revealing strong forearms. If I hadn't just ruined his morning, I might have taken a second to appreciate the view. But now was not the time for distractions. About earlier, I started, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't even look up from the documents in front of him. Don't waste my time with apologies. Right. No apologies. I clasped my hands together to stop them from shaking. I want to assure you that I am very capable of handling this position, and... Are you? His icy blue eyes finally met mine, pinning me in place. I swallowed hard. Yes. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with an unreadable expression. Then in a voice so calm it was almost chilling, he said, Prove it. My breath hitched. Prove it. His gaze flickered to the stack of folders on his desk. Sort through these and summarize the key points of each proposal. You have 1 hour. 1 hour. There were at least 20 documents in that pile. My throat went dry. Something wrong, Miss Carter? I straightened my shoulders. No, sir. He gestured to the chair across from him. Then sit. I did as told, feeling the weight of his gaze on me as I pulled the first file from the stack. The words blurred together in my panic, but I forced myself to focus. I had to do this. I needed this job. Minutes passed in silence, the only sound being the scratch of my pen and the soft rustle of paper. Every few moments I could feel Nate watching me, his presence an unshakable force in the room. At some point his phone buzzed. He answered in a clipped tone. Speak. Pause. Then renegotiate. If they refuse, cut the deal. Another pause. No. I don't make exceptions. His voice was sharp, authoritative. The kind of voice that made people obey without question. But instead of intimidating me, it only fueled my determination. I would not be the assistant who crumbled under his gaze. By the time the hour was up, I had gone through every file, my notes detailed and precise. I placed them in front of him and held my breath. Nate picked up the first page, scanning it. His expression didn't change, but I swore I saw the slightest flicker of surprise in his eyes before he set it down. Then after a long silence he spoke. You're not completely incompetent, at least. I blinked. Thank you. He sighed, rubbing his temple. That wasn't a compliment. Could have fooled me. He leaned forward, his elbows resting on the desk. This is a high-pressure job, Miss Carter. If you can't keep up, I won't hesitate to replace you. I lifted my chin. I can handle it. His lips twitched, almost like he was amused. But the moment passed and his cold mask returned. We'll see. With that, he dismissed me with a flick of his wrist. I walked out of his office on slightly unsteady legs, but with a small, determined smile on my lips. Maybe, just maybe, I could survive the Ice King. By the time I finished work, it was well past midnight. The office was silent, the only sound the faint hum of the city beyond the glass windows. My legs ached, my head pounded, and I was fairly certain I hadn't blinked in the last 2 hours. But at least I had survived another day. Barely. I gathered my things, stretching out the stiffness in my shoulders before making my way toward the elevator. The executive floor was empty now, except for the dim light still glowing from behind Nate Sinclair's office door. Of course he was still working. Did the man ever sleep? Not that it was any of my business. I had bigger problems, like how I was supposed to get home when I'd completely missed the last train. A taxi was out of the question. My paycheck wouldn't arrive for another week, and I was already surviving on instant ramen and coffee. I sighed, rubbing my temple as I stepped out of the building. The air was cold, a sharp autumn breeze nipping at my cheeks. I wrapped my arms around myself, debating whether walking 3 miles home in heels was a death sentence. The answer was yes. Absolutely. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts. Maybe Chloe could pick me up. But before I could call her, a sleek black car rolled up to the curb in front of me. The tinted window lowered and my stomach flipped when I saw who was sitting inside. Nathaniel Sinclair. He was still in his dress shirt, his tie loosened just enough to make him look effortlessly perfect. His piercing blue eyes flicked toward me, unreadable as always. You're still here, he said, voice smooth but indifferent. I shifted awkwardly. Yeah. I was just leaving. His gaze flicked to my heels, then to the deserted street behind me. For a second he said nothing, just drumming his fingers lightly against the steering wheel. Then in a tone so casual it caught me off guard, he asked, "Do you need a ride?" I blinked, convinced I misheard him. Nathaniel Sinclair offering me a ride? I shook my head quickly. Oh no, I'm fine. Really. I was just about to. Liar. The word was soft, almost amused. My mouth fell open. His gaze sharpened. Get in the car, Carter. There was no room for argument. And maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe it was the way his voice softened just slightly when he said my name, but I found myself moving before I could think better of it. The moment I slipped into the passenger seat, I felt painfully out of place. The car smelled like expensive leather and something distinctly him. Something warm like cedarwood and crisp autumn air. He didn't speak as he pulled onto the road, one hand resting easily on the wheel. The silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable but not exactly easy either. I shifted in my seat, sneaking a glance at him. His profile was sharp under the soft glow of the streetlights, his jaw clenched in quiet focus. "Thank you," I murmured. He didn't look at me, but his fingers tightened slightly on the wheel. "You work late," I added, trying to fill the silence. "So do you." I huffed out a laugh. "Yeah, but I'm not the CEO of a billion-dollar company. Don't you ever get tired of it?" A muscle ticked in his jaw. For a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. But then, so quietly I almost missed it, he said, "Sometimes." That single word carried more weight than it should have. Like maybe just for a second he wasn't the untouchable, ruthless man the world believed him to be. The car slowed to a stop in front of my apartment building. I turned to him, hesitating. I wanted to say something, anything, but before I could, he finally met my gaze. "Get some sleep, Carter." Something warm fluttered in my chest. I nodded, stepping out of the car, but I lingered for a second, watching as he pulled away into the night. Maybe the Ice King wasn't completely frozen after all. I told myself it was nothing. A simple car ride. A moment of civility. A fluke. But the next morning when I walked into the office I felt it immediately. The shift. The tension in the air. The way my heart jumped the second I saw him. Nathaniel Sinclair sat at his desk, reviewing a document, looking as unreadable as ever. But when I entered, his eyes flicked up to mine, lingering for just a second longer than necessary. I swallowed hard, gripping my tablet like a lifeline. "Good morning, sir." His gaze flickered over me, assessing. Carter. That was it. Just my name. No scolding, no irritation, just the way his voice dipped slightly when he said it, like he was testing the way it felt on his tongue. I forced myself to look away, shoving down the ridiculous flutter in my stomach. I was overthinking it. He probably hadn't even thought twice about last night. He was my boss and I was his assistant. That was all this was. But as the day stretched on, I started to notice things I shouldn't. The way his gaze lingered when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his voice softened just a little when he gave me instructions. The way his fingertips brushed against mine when he handed me a file, sending a jolt through my entire body. It was infuriating. And distracting. And, God help me, thrilling. By the time evening rolled around, I was exhausted from pretending I didn't feel it. The pull. The quiet electricity crackling in the space between us. I told myself I was imagining it. That it was just me. Until I caught him staring. It was late, most employees had already left, and I was gathering my things when I felt it. That unmistakable sensation of being watched. I turned my head and there he was, standing by his office window, hands in his pockets, his blue eyes locked onto me. He didn't look away. Neither did I. For a moment time slowed. The air between us thickened, charged with something unsaid. Something dangerous. My breath hitched. Then just as quickly as it came he turned back to his desk as if nothing had happened. I stood there, heart racing, knowing one thing for certain. This was no longer just in my head. I didn't think much of the phone call at first. It was just a name flashing across my screen. Logan Bennett, followed by a familiar voice, warm and teasing as always. I answered with a quiet laugh, keeping my voice low as I stepped into the hallway. "Shouldn't you be working instead of calling me? Shouldn't you be taking a break instead of working yourself to death?" Logan shot back. "Come on, Lily, you're in the heart of the city, and you still haven't agreed to meet up? What kind of best friend does that?" I smiled despite myself, warmth spreading through my chest. Logan had been there for me through everything, and yet since I'd started this job, I'd barely had time to see him. "I'll make it up to you," I promised. Things have been hectic." There was a pause on the other end. A knowing silence. "Is it your boss?" Logan's voice lost its teasing edge. "Are they overworking you? Do I need to show up and scare them a little?" I laughed. "Trust me, Logan, no one scares my boss." I didn't realize someone was watching. When I turned back toward my desk, my breath caught. Nathaniel Sinclair stood a few feet away, his icy blue eyes locked onto me, his expression unreadable. My heart slammed against my ribs. How long had he been standing there? Had he heard my conversation? His gaze flickered to my phone still in my hand. A slow, assessing look. Personal calls during office hours? His voice was quiet, but there was something sharp beneath it. I swallowed hard. It was just a quick. "I don't pay you to chat, Miss Carter." The words were cold, clipped. But it wasn't just the words. It was the way his jaw was tight, the way his fingers curled into a fist at his side. Something twisted in my stomach. I should have apologized. I should have nodded and gone back to work. Instead, for some inexplicable reason, I found myself saying, "Are you upset?" His eyes darkened. Why would I be upset? I had no answer for that. And yet as I stood there, his gaze burning into mine, I knew he was. I just didn't know why. For the rest of the day his mood was different. Tense. Unreadable. He barely spoke to me except for curt instructions, barely spared me a glance except when he thought I wasn't looking. But I felt it. The shift. The edge in his voice. The way his attention snapped toward me the second my phone buzzed again. That night as I packed up my things, I heard his voice from his office. Irritated. Cancel the meeting. Pause. No, I don't care. Find another time. Another pause. Then lower clipped, it's none of your concern. I didn't know why, but something told me he wasn't talking about work. And I had a feeling I knew exactly who he was talking about. The tension didn't fade. If anything, it grew thicker with each passing day. Nathaniel Sinclair was colder than ever, his words clipped, his orders impersonal. It was as if he had decided overnight that I no longer existed beyond my role as his assistant. But the problem was, I felt his presence more than ever. I felt it when I walked into the room and his gaze flicked toward me before he looked away. I felt it when our hands brushed as he handed me a file, the touch lingering for half a second too long. I felt it when he spoke my name, short, sharp, like he was trying not to say it at all. And I felt it most when I stayed late at the office one evening, completely alone, and suddenly he was there. I hadn't expected him to still be working, but when I turned a corner, my breath caught. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up. His usual pristine composure was cracked, just barely, but enough for me to see the exhaustion in the way he rubbed his temple, the weight pressing down on him. He didn't notice me at first. Or maybe he did and simply chose to ignore me. But then I stepped forward, my voice soft. You should go home, sir. A muscle in his jaw ticked, but he didn't turn around. I could say the same to you. I hesitated, watching the way his fingers tightened into a fist before relaxing again. Something in my chest twisted. I shouldn't have cared. He was my boss, nothing more. But still, before I could stop myself, the words slipped out. You don't have to pretend with me. The silence that followed was deafening. His shoulders tensed, his entire body going still. Then finally he turned. His blue eyes locked onto mine, and I nearly took a step back from the intensity in them. There was something raw there, something unspoken. I expected him to snap at me, to tell me I was crossing a line. But instead, in a voice quieter than I'd ever heard it, he said, Is that what you think I'm doing? I swallowed hard. I think you carry too much on your shoulders. And I think you won't let yourself breathe. His eyes darkened. For a moment, neither of us moved, the air between us thick with something I didn't want to name. Then before I could react, he stepped forward. Slowly. Deliberately. I was frozen in place, my heart pounding as he stopped just inches away from me. The scent of his cologne wrapped around me, woodsy, sharp, intoxicating. And then so quietly I barely heard it, he murmured, You should be more careful with the way you look at me, Carter. My breath hitched. I don't have patience for things I can't control. His voice was low, almost dangerous. And you are becoming very hard to control. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I could speak at all. But before I could find the words, he took a step back, his expression carefully neutral once more. Go home, he ordered. Now. I couldn't move. I could still feel the heat of his presence, the way my body reacted to his closeness. But when he turned his back on me, I finally exhaled, gripping the strap of my bag as I forced myself to walk away. I told myself it was nothing. A slip. A moment of weakness. But deep down I knew the truth. Something between us had shifted. And there was no turning back. I had spent the entire weekend trying to forget that moment. Trying to erase the way his voice had sent a shiver down my spine, the way his eyes had darkened like I was something he wanted but knew he shouldn't have. But forgetting was impossible when every second in the office felt like a silent war. Nathaniel Sinclair had gone back to being cold, unreadable, as if that night had never happened. And maybe it meant nothing to him. Maybe it was just another fleeting moment in his perfectly controlled world. But for me it was something I couldn't ignore. Which was exactly why I needed to be careful. I was reviewing documents at my desk when my phone buzzed. Logan. I hesitated before picking up, keeping my voice low. Hey, now's not really a good time. I know, he cut me off. But we need to talk. In person. My stomach twisted. I glanced around the office, lowering my voice even more. Logan, I told you. You don't understand, he interrupted, urgency laced in his tone. He's looking for you. My blood ran cold. My grip on the phone tightened. You promised me it was over, I whispered, A heavy pause. Then softly, I thought it was. A shadow loomed over my desk. My heart nearly stopped. I turned slowly, my breath catching when I saw Nathaniel Sinclair standing right behind me. His expression was unreadable, his piercing blue eyes locked onto mine with unnerving intensity. I scrambled to end the call, but it was too late. He had already heard. The silence stretched between us, suffocating. "Who's looking for you?" His voice was quiet, dangerously controlled. I shook my head, forcing a weak smile. "It's nothing. Don't lie to me." I froze. His tone was sharp, leaving no room for argument. My pulse pounded in my ears. "I have work to finish." I tried, reaching for the stack of files, but before I could grab them, his hand came down flat against the desk, blocking me in. I sucked in a breath. "Look at me," he demanded. I didn't want to. I didn't want him to see the panic in my eyes, the fear clawing at my chest. But I had no choice. Slowly I lifted my gaze to his. He studied me for a long moment, his sharp eyes scanning my face like he was memorizing every reaction. Then, in a voice so quiet it sent a chill down my spine, he said, "You're hiding something from me." My throat tightened. "You're my boss. My personal life isn't your concern." His jaw clenched. "It is when it affects you in my company." I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. The weight of his gaze pressed against me, leaving me breathless. Then, just as suddenly as he had cornered me, he pulled back. "Fine," he said smoothly, turning toward his office. "If you won't tell me, I'll find out myself." Panic surged through me. Oh, he couldn't. I shot up from my chair. "Nate." He stopped. The second his name left my lips, something shifted in his expression. I had never called him that before. For the first time since I met him, Nathaniel Sinclair hesitated. But the moment passed, and without another word, he walked away. I sank back into my chair, heart racing, knowing one thing for certain. He wouldn't stop until he knew the truth. And when he found out, everything would fall apart. I knew it was only a matter of time before he uncovered the truth. But I never expected it to happen so soon. The moment I stepped into the office the next morning, I could feel it. Something was wrong. The air was heavier, suffocating. The employees were quieter, their gazes flickering toward Nathaniel Sinclair's office with something close to fear. And then I saw him. He stood by the window, his back to me, his posture stiff, shoulders tense. His usual composure was gone, replaced by something darker. I barely had time to take a breath before his voice cut through the silence. "Close the door." My hands trembled as I obeyed. Fully he turned. His blue eyes, always so cold, were now frozen over with something unreadable. He tossed a folder onto his desk. It slid toward me, stopping just inches from my fingers. "Do you want to explain this?" he said, voice eerily calm. "Or should I?" I didn't want to look. I already knew what was inside. But I had no choice. With shaking hands I opened the folder. And there was a name I never wanted him to see. A history I had buried. The truth laid out in black and white. I closed my eyes. The room tilted. "You lied to me." His voice was quieter now, but no less sharp. "From the very beginning." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "It's not what you think." His jaw tightened. "Then tell me what it is." I opened my mouth. No words came out. Because there was nothing I could say that would make this right. The silence stretched. The tension coiled tighter. Then, in a voice that cut straight through my chest, he asked, "Was anything real?" My heart clenched. He wasn't just asking about my past. He wasn't just asking about the secret I had kept from him. He was asking about us. My hands curled into fists. I wanted to tell him the truth, that yes, it was real, all of it, but the words lodged in my throat. The seconds ticked by. He took my silence as an answer. His expression shuddered. The warmth, the fragile, fleeting warmth I had seen in him, vanished. Then he exhaled, slow and final. "You're fired." The words punched the air from my lungs. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. "Nate, please." His eyes darkened. "Don't." It was over. Just like that I lost him. And the worst part? I had no one to blame but myself. It was over. I kept repeating those words to myself, trying to make them real. But no matter how many times I whispered them, no matter how many times I told myself that I had always known this would happen, it didn't hurt any less. I left Sinclair Enterprises with nothing but a cardboard box of my belongings and a hollow ache in my chest. The moment the elevator doors shut behind me, the weight of it crashed down. I had lost my job. I had lost him. The city felt colder that night. The streets were the same, the lights still flickered against the sidewalks, but everything felt different. Days blurred together after that. I forced myself to move forward, to pretend that I wasn't falling apart piece by piece. I picked up part-time jobs, spent hours searching for something new, but nothing filled the void he had left behind. I kept expecting my phone to buzz, for his name to appear on the screen. But it never did. Nathaniel Sinclair had erased me from his life as if I had never existed. And yet, no matter how much I tried to do the same, I couldn't escape him. His name was everywhere. On billboards, in newspapers, flashing across TV screens. Every time I saw a glimpse of him, standing in the middle of a corporate meeting, dressed in his perfect suits with that same unreadable expression, my stomach twisted. He looked the same. Taken. Unaffected. As if I had never mattered at all. Chloe tried to convince me to go out, to distract myself, but even surrounded by people, my mind wandered back to him. To the way he looked at me before everything fell apart. To the way he had whispered my name like a warning. I thought the pain couldn't get worse. Then I saw him again. It was an accident. A cruel twist of fate. I had been walking past a restaurant, lost in my own thoughts, when my eyes landed on the glass window, and my heart stopped. He was there. Sitting at a private table. And he wasn't alone. A woman sat across from him, beautiful, elegant, everything I wasn't. She leaned in, smiling as she spoke, and for the first time in weeks I saw him smirk. Not the cold, businesslike smile he gave to clients. A real one. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I had no right to feel this way. No right to hurt. But as I stood there, frozen in place, all I could think was that I had never seen him smile at me like that. I turned away before the tears could spill. He was moving on. And I had to find a way to do the same. I told myself I wouldn't think about him anymore. That I wouldn't wonder what he was doing, who he was with, or if he ever thought about me at all. But fate had a cruel sense of humor. It had been months since I last saw Nathaniel Sinclair. Months since I walked out of his office, out of his life, with nothing but regret weighing me down. I had tried to rebuild, to move forward, but the truth was, I had spent every day convincing myself that I was fine when I wasn't. And then, out of nowhere, he was there. It happened at a high-profile business gala. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was only helping Chloe with an event coordination job, nothing more. I wasn't a guest. I wasn't anyone important. But the second I stepped into the grand ballroom, I felt it. A presence. A pull. I turned my head and my heart nearly stopped. Nathaniel stood across the room, dressed in an impossibly sharp black suit, exuding power and confidence, the same way he always had. Except this time something was different. This time his eyes were on me. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. For a split second the entire room faded away. Then his expression hardened. He turned away, speaking to someone beside him as if he hadn't just looked at me like I was a ghost from his past. Like I didn't matter. I should have left. I should have turned around and walked out before I made a mistake. But fate wasn't done with me yet. It happened too fast. A tray of champagne glasses wobbled in the hands of a passing server, teetering dangerously. My instincts kicked in before I could think. I reached out, steadying it just in time. Only I wasn't the only one who reacted. A hand caught mine. Large, strong, achingly familiar. The world tilted. I looked up and suddenly he was right there. So close I could see the flicker of surprise in his icy blue eyes. So close I could hear the sharp inhale he took, as if he hadn't meant to touch me either. Time stretched, unbearably slow. His grip tightened for just a second, like he was memorizing the feel of me, like he wasn't ready to let go. Then just as quickly as it happened, he released me. His gaze darkened. His voice, when he spoke, was smooth, unreadable. Still causing trouble, I see. My breath caught. A dozen responses flickered through my mind, but I couldn't say a single one. Because standing there, feeling the heat of his presence, knowing that after all this time he still had the power to unravel me with just a look, I realized something. No matter how much time had passed, no matter how much I had tried to move on, I wasn't over him. And worse, I didn't think I ever would be. I should have walked away. I should have ignored the way my heart clenched at the sight of him, the way his voice sent a shiver down my spine. But something about seeing him again after all these months, this close, this real, made it impossible to pretend I didn't care. His words lingered in the air between us, a challenge, a reminder of the way things had ended. Still causing trouble, I see. I lifted my chin, forcing a smirk. What can I say? Some things never change. His gaze flickered, something unreadable crossing his face. But before either of us could say anything else, a voice cut through the tension. Mr. Sinclair, they're waiting for you at your table. I turned to see a woman standing beside him, elegant, poised. The same woman I had seen him with that night at the restaurant. My stomach twisted. I had told myself I was over it, that it didn't matter, but seeing them together now, up close, was like a punch to the gut. Nathaniel didn't move. His eyes were still locked onto mine, his jaw tight as if something in him was warring against itself. Then without another word he turned and walked away. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I had expected him to disappear into the crowd after that, to act like I no longer existed. But fate had other plans. Because the next time I turned around he was watching me again. Not just once. Not just in passing. All night. Every time I moved through the room I could feel his gaze burning into me, tracking my every step. It was subtle, too subtle for anyone else to notice, but I felt it. I felt him. And I wasn't the only one. You know he hasn't stopped looking at you, right? Chloe muttered as she handed me a glass of champagne. I forced a laugh. You're imagining things. She arched a brow. Am I? I hated that she was right. I hated it even more when I finally caved and met his gaze across the room. The second I did he moved. He didn't hesitate. He didn't look away. He crossed the room with the same confidence, the same precision that made people fear him. And suddenly he was standing in front of me. You've been avoiding me, he said, voice low. I scoffed. I wasn't aware we were in each other's lives enough for that to be possible. His lips pressed into a thin line. For a long moment he didn't speak, but I could see it. The war raging behind his icy blue eyes. Then finally, in a voice so quiet I barely heard it, he said, I looked for you. My breath caught. I told myself I wouldn't, he continued, eyes dark, unreadable. That it was over. That you made your choice. Pause. A sharp exhale. But I still looked. Something inside me cracked. I had spent all these months convincing myself he hadn't cared. That I had meant nothing to him. But hearing this, hearing that he had searched for me, that I wasn't just some passing thought in his perfectly controlled world, made my heart ache in ways I wasn't ready for. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. Why are you telling me this now? His jaw clenched, his hands curling into fists at his sides. Like he was fighting something he didn't want to say. Then finally, in a voice rougher than before, he said, Because seeing you tonight made me realize something. I waited, pulse pounding, hanging on to his every breath. His eyes burned into mine, raw, conflicted, something else. Something dangerous simmering just beneath the surface. I'm not done with you, Lillian Carter. The words sent a shock through my entire body. And as much as I wanted to deny it, as much as I wanted to tell myself that I had moved on, I wasn't done with him either. I wasn't sure who moved first. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was me. But suddenly, we were no longer standing in the middle of the crowded ballroom. I barely registered the people around us, the music, the clinking of champagne glasses. All I knew was the intensity in his gaze, the weight of his words still lingering between us. I'm not done with you, Lillian Carter. My heart pounded. I should have walked away. I should have told him that he had no right to say that, not after what happened. Not after he fired me. Not after he let me think he had erased me from his life. But deep down I knew the truth. I had never been erased. I had never been forgotten. And neither had he. He reached for my wrist, his touch firm but not forceful. A silent question. A challenge. I didn't pull away. Come with me, he murmured. I knew I shouldn't. But I did. He led me out onto the balcony, the city stretching endlessly beneath us. The cold night air bit at my skin, but I barely felt it. For a long moment neither of us spoke. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was heavy, filled with everything we had never said. Then finally he broke it. I know everything. My stomach twisted. I know why you left before this job. I know who you were running from. His voice was quieter now, controlled, but I could hear the sharp edge underneath. I know about him. I closed my eyes. I had spent so long keeping this part of my life buried, so long convincing myself that it didn't matter, that I could escape it. But Nathaniel had always been relentless. He was never the kind of man to let something go once he set his sights on it. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet his gaze. It's over now. His jaw clenched. You don't have to lie to me anymore. I let out a shaky breath, gripping the balcony railing. What do you want me to say, Nate? That I was scared? That I did what I had to do to survive? My voice wavered. That I never wanted you to find out because I knew you'd look at me like this? His expression darkened. Like what? Like I'm broken. Something flickered in his eyes. He exhaled slowly, stepping closer, his voice softer this time. You're not broken, Lillian. I let out a hollow laugh. You don't even know the worst of it. I don't care about the worst of it. His fingers brushed against mine, tentative but deliberate. I care about you. I sucked in a breath. He wasn't supposed to say that. He wasn't supposed to still care. But looking at him now, I realized he had never stopped. My throat tightened. You fired me. A muscle in his jaw twitched. I made a mistake. I shook my head. You don't make mistakes. I did with you. His voice was rough, the words like a confession. I let my pride get in the way. I let my anger blind me. He exhaled. And I lost you because of it. My chest ached. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to step into his arms, to let go of everything that had kept us apart. But there was still so much standing between us. I hesitated, searching his face. What about her? For a second he looked confused. Then his brows furrowed. Her. The woman at the restaurant. The woman you were with tonight. My voice was barely above a whisper. Are you? A short, sharp exhale. Then, she was never you. The words slammed into me like a force I wasn't ready for. Then before I could say anything, he reached for me. And this time I didn't pull away. His hands cupped my face, his touch warm against my chilled skin. His eyes locked onto mine, searching, waiting, giving me one last chance to run. But I didn't want to run anymore. So when he leaned in, I met him halfway. The second his lips touched mine, the world tilted. The city disappeared. The past, the secrets, the mistakes. None of it mattered. All that mattered was him. His lips were firm, insistent, but not rushed. He kissed me like he was memorizing me, like he was making up for every second we had spent apart. Maybe he was. Because I kissed him back the same way. By the time we pulled away, my breath was shaky, my hands still tangled in his suit. His forehead rested against mine, his breathing uneven. I'm not losing you again, he murmured. I closed my eyes. This time I believed him.